Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. How's everybody doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Give a thumbs up, everybody who's here. There's a bunch of people who are still trying to get on. So as their audio and video connects, we'll keep going. But I'll keep letting people in as they go up. And hopefully you guys have lots and lots of questions to ask. I try to make sure that anybody who sent questions in earlier, I put them aside so they'd be there. If you guys are in the group and you have questions, make sure you ask them away. There are a couple things that you can do. If you want to send a message through the chat feature, that's great. I'll see those as they come up. So if you have a question, send it through the chat, or if you want to unmute your mic, you are certainly able to do that. And I want to make sure I have my chat window open. Good.
My chat.
Put that over there. Perfect.
Oh, shoot, what did I do? I just messed up.
Cool. So let's see. And I've got my Eaglesoft screen to share to you guys. So any questions that you have about Eaglesoft processes, we can go over there and do that too. So really, this is all about you guys. I mean, the whole idea of having this meeting is when I put the topic out there, everybody said they wanted to know about insurance processing. So I figured this would be a great way to just answer your questions, do it real time. If there's anything that you guys can think of that you want to know about, ask away. I'll show you live on Eaglesoft. Answer the questions that you have. Whatever you can think of, we can work it out. So what I will ask you guys to do is mute your mics until you have a question. When you have a question, unmute your mic, and that way we're not having a lot of feedback in the background. So unmute your mic when you have a question, mute it when you don't have a question, and anything you can think of, let me know, and we'll go through it. So, and I'm going to open up on my other screen over here a couple of questions that came through Facebook. One question that came through on Facebook was a question about coding. How do you bill out a certain code? Those questions I'm going to defer to the Dental Billing, Coding, and Insurance Academy Facebook group. I can give you an answer. I know all my codes. I know how to utilize the codes. But if I give you an answer without knowing your particular situation, might be let's call it malpractice to do it that way. So I'm going to send you to that Facebook group if you have a specific code about how to use a specific code in your office, because there's nuances that you want to make sure you know about. So anybody have a burning question you want to be the first to ask, either put it in the chat or ask away. Unmute your mic and ask the question, and we'll dig in.
Okay.
I'm going to pull up my other questions that are here while you guys are doing that. So if you have a question, open up your mic, ask away. And I don't hear anybody asking questions. Everybody got shy. I'm going through all the text messages I got this morning. And to see if there's anything that I should make sure to cover here and let these folks into the group. So you got me. So ask some questions, guys.
Okay.
And I'm looking at 3 different things as we're talking. So, okay, treatment plan estimates rarely seem accurate. Why is that? Okay, so treatment plan estimates there's a number of different reasons why it might be incorrect. First reason is because your estimations aren't correct. Treatment plan estimates depend on a bunch of different things. One, if you are an office that does multiple treatment plans for a patient, so you could say, Andre, we can do an extraction We can do a partial. We can do an extraction. We can do a full, we can do a 3-unit bridge. We can do an extraction. We can do an implant, a bone graft, implant, custom abutment, and crown. So if you've written 3 different treatment plans, the first plan you wrote will take away my benefits. All right. So if you then get to the implant treatment plan, there are no benefits left because you've already posted those into the first treatment plan. So it is possible that that could be a reason. The other reason, which is universal to most offices, is most people don't have Eaglesoft set up properly to estimate insurance. Most people have coverage books that I wouldn't rely on, even if you paid me to rely on them. So there are a lot of reasons why a treatment plan wouldn't be correct. If your walkouts aren't correct, your treatment plans aren't going to be correct. If you have your estimated insurance set up properly, meaning fee schedules and or coverage books, and you have the proper maximums in your remaining benefits, then there's no reason why a treatment plan would not be accurate. Now, again, that being said, there are other extenuating circumstances. If I had to write a treatment plan in November and the patient is having services done in November, December, and January, of course, January's estimations are going to be incorrect because it will renew the benefit year. So, years and years of using treatment plans and Eaglesoft, I have always been, and I'm going to say it in such a way that hopefully you guys will understand it. I have always been to the penny with my estimations. And if it's not to the penny, the difference is minor. All right. So we'll circle back to that. Do we have to use coverage books to get correct estimations? Okay. So let's talk about the difference between fee schedules and coverage books. Okay. So if you are in network with an insurance company, then you don't need coverage books for the most part. If you are in network and say, let's just use for round figures, if your crown is $1,000 and you're in network with a plan, and in that plan, your allowance is $800 for a crown. So I post the crown, $1,000 shows up as my standard fee. $200 is automatically adjusted in the background. So my fee today is $800. If my service types are set up properly, then it will say 50% coverage for that crown. So the insurance estimation will be $400 and my copayment should be $400. There is absolutely no reason to have a coverage book in that setup. If you're in network, you have an allowance in the plan, so a fee schedule. All right, there is absolutely no reason to have a coverage book. All right, the coverage book is just going to give a definitive number, but that definitive number should be $400. Now, if we set it up properly, again, fee schedule against it in-network plan, there is no reason to have a coverage book. If we need something different, so remember I used the example of a crown, but if it's a posterior resin, this is why it won't work. So I have my allowance at, so my crown, my posterior resin is $100. I have that they cover 80%, all right? But we know that they downgrade composites, posterior composites. So a coverage book would come into play on that because it's an exception to the service type rule, the service type 80%. So there's got to be something that fixes it. And that's going to be a coverage book. So in my office, I would only ever set up fee schedules for all of the in-network plans where we're in. And then I would have 4 codes, 1 surface, 2 surface, 3 surface, 4 surface, posterior composites. There would be 4 codes in my coverage book for those plans. Other than that, the service type would dictate the percentage that would be paid. So you'll see me in the Facebook group when I say service fee schedules and or coverage books. So you may have a situation where you might have a coverage book in there too, but like I said, my coverage books are typically 4 codes. All right. So you don't always have to have coverage books to have your estimations be accurate, but they help with things that are exceptions to rules like posterior resins. Now, hopefully that answers that question. It's a long way to get around, but it's an easy process when you get things set up properly in air quotes there. But if you're out of network, okay, then you will need coverage books, because now you're not estimating based on allowances. You're estimating based on some nebulous amount that the insurance company is paying you, because you're not in network. So they're not paying 80% of your fees. They're paying 80% of the allowable fees. So now you're going to have to go in and actually put in exact amounts that they pay for those services. So if you're out of network, then coverage books will be your friend. All right. So the next question that came is, how do I get out of network carriers to give the allowable amounts? Many times they will not give that info to you. Easy. I'm sure everybody, and I'm going to pretend that this is my stack. Everybody's got a stack of EOBs in or under your desk. You have the allowances in that stack of EOBs. All right. All you have to do is go through that stack and just, put down what they pay for those services. So if you go through a stack of EOBs, by the end of that stack, you're going to have all of the allowances for the services you typically do. So you're going to have all of the, how much they pay for, a filling, exam, bite wings, et cetera, et cetera. Now, are they going to tell you how much they pay for a night guard? Well, I mean, that depends on how often do you do night guards, how many night guards are going to be in that stack. So that's an easy one. You can just keep doing it. And Catherine, don't apologize for asking questions. That's what this is all about. I want you guys to ask all the questions you have. That's what this whole thing is for. So ask away. If you guys have questions, ask them. That's what we're here for. But yeah, to get the out of network fees, really all you need to do is just go through your EOBs and start making a list. I have a lot of offices that will just get like an Excel spreadsheet, and they'll have columns, Delta, Aetna, Guardian, et cetera, and they'll have code 120, 150, 210, 220, et cetera, and they'll just fill in that Excel spreadsheet with the allowable fees on that Excel spreadsheet. And then you could take those amounts and then transcribe that into Eaglesoft. So it's now calculating all those amounts for you. All right. And this fee changes yearly. It sure does. So every year, and that's why you see me talking about this all the time. That is why I don't like coverage books, because every year you've got to go back and update every single one of those coverage books and every single one of those employers, where if you're using fee schedules and you're in network, those fees don't typically change that often. Maybe every couple of years they give you a bump in your fees. So if you're in network, it's a whole lot easier. If you're out of network and you are estimating for the patients, it's an ongoing battle. What I tell people is, I live in the Northeast. We have differences in the weather that changes all the time. And people in the Northeast are used to having, problems with weeds on your lawn. You're going to have dandelions, you're going to have crabgrass, because the weather changes and because the way the weeds grow. And every single coverage book is like a weed or like a lawn. You're going to constantly have to weed it. You're going to constantly have to deal with it. It is a pain in the butt. You're going to have to constantly weed. So it is what it is. You're going to have to break out with your Roundup on a regular basis and kill those weeds. But as long as you're on top of it, you can stay as accurate as possible. But be aware, and this is something that you have to work on with the verbal skills of the admin crew in your office, you have to be on top of giving people estimates. And you have to make sure you're saying that. And patients don't hear it. Patients will never hear that you said this is an estimate, but you've got to figure out a way of saying, and what I typically do is I make all of my out-of-network estimations about 5% lower than what I expect. So when I get more money back, I'm a hero. But I always lower my expectation for my patient. They should send us about $100 and we get 110. Oh, wow, I'm so good at what I do. So, okay. The remaining balance in the benefits is not always accurate in the patient's screen. Does it have anything to do with the treatment plan? It doesn't have to do with the treatment plan so much as it has to do with a couple things. So I'm going to share my Eaglesoft screen for you guys so you can see something here. My Zoom controls. And I'm going to share screen 2 over here. So you guys can see my Eaglesoft screen, I'm hoping. I'm going to go into File and Preferences. And I want you to see something here. And it's going to be under accounting, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So let's see. And now I forgot where it is. Insurance. Okay, here it is. You see this checkbox right here? Hopefully you guys can see this in my, can you see this in my screen, my preferences?
A little bit.
It says when closing claim, assign services to current balance, and when closing claim, apply unpaid amounts back to remaining balance benefits. So if this is not checked, okay, if this is not checked and you have a claim come back, all right, that amount's not going to go back to the remaining benefits. So imagine you estimated that they're going to pay $100 and they pay $80. That $20 that was held out of your remaining benefits would not go back to the benefits if that's not checked. So you have to make sure that that's checked. When closing claim, apply unpaid amounts back to the remaining benefits. And again, sometimes I find that that's not checked and the office is pulling money out of remaining benefits, but not putting it back on. So, you know, that could be a huge issue.
Okay.
Right. So let's see right here. And hate coverage books. Yes, Catherine, I hate coverage books too. I really do. And again, I use them very sparingly. And I always ask offices, I have basically a questionnaire. When I work with an office, I ask them a couple of really important questions. And the three questions are, or the three scenarios are, when you estimate insurance, do you expect out of network to say to a patient, this is what your insurance is going to pay? Or do you say, this is what we think your insurance is going to pay? Or do you say, I have no idea what your insurance is going to pay. We'll send it in and find out later on. So it depends on how the office deals with it. You've got to pick which one you want to fall in on. You know, do you want to estimate to the penny? Do you want to give them a general idea? Or do you want to just say, whatever it is, it is? So you've got to pick which one you want to give them. And again, it goes back to the next one that somebody put in here, you know, promise less and deliver more. Yep. Under promise and over deliver. It's, hey, you know, my Disney years, that's what we're always taught. So that's the way you want to do it, is to, you know, to make it so that the patient is getting what they expect and you can deliver even more. The next one was with fee schedules. So you create the fee schedule for the insurance that you are in network with and then attach them to the employers correctly. Yes, so that is correct. So when we build a fee schedule, and I'm going to share my screen again, my Eaglesoft screen again, so you guys can see what I do. So when we,
Sorry.
So under list, I have my fee schedule list. And I have a fee schedule for each of the fee schedules, each of the, you know, the agreed upon schedules of allowances. So you can see I have a Delta Premier and a Delta PPO, but I also see the last time those plans have been updated. So in the name of the plan, I will always write in when that plan was last updated or the effective date on it. Like if you have a MetLife or a Guardian fee schedule, at the bottom of that fee schedule, it will actually give you the effective date. So imagine if I open this up and I saw effective date 2014 or 2016, I know that there's probably a newer version out there. All right. So, or if I do the legwork, like I talked about with that Excel spreadsheet, if I'm putting this information in there, I want to find out the last time that information's been updated. So yes, you create a fee schedule for all of the fee schedules that you utilize in your office. And then under the employer, oops, wrong place, list and employer. So here's AARP, and AARP uses not the Delta, but the Delta PPO fee schedule. All right, and you can see my employers are set up so that the fee schedule, Delta PPO, would match the insurance company. And then I have my post-resident downgrade coverage book, which only has 4 codes in it. All right. And then I have my adjustment type in here too. So it says provider adjustment for Delta Dental. It's very specific so that I can track Delta Dental adjustments. But 99.9% of the time, I don't have to do an adjustment because that adjustment's done through the fee schedule. All right. But that is the proper setup. It should be Delta Dental. It should be Delta fee schedule, and it should be a coverage book that is very specific to the way this coverage book would last. And then the last part would be my adjustment, again, which probably doesn't get used in my office, but that's the way I would set it up. And then the percentages for the service types. And if I do that, then my estimation should come out to the penny.
Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome. And let's see what else we got here. Sending pre-auths for crowns. Okay. So, okay, this is gonna sound really, really radical. I don't send pre-authorizations, period. End of sentence. Never have, never will. Any of my offices that I work with, if they tell me they're sending pre-authorizations, I will tell them why. All right. A pre-authorization is the same thing as you walking into the Coach store, looking at a bag and saying, I want to call my credit card company and ask them if they'll okay this purchase. Come on. I mean, really, it is a complete waste of time. All right. Remember, a pre-authorization could be denied. You can send the pre-authorization and then they deny the claim. So for me, it's just a stall technique for a patient. So I have never done it, won't do it, absolutely won't do it. So if you want to do it, go for it. But I don't do it in my office. You guys, if you've been doing this for enough time, you know, 90% of the time, based on the x-ray, based on the treatment of the patient, you know if it's going to be covered or not. I mean, if you don't have a prior endo with half the tooth gone and, you know, a good PA showing the apice, you're not going to get paid. Doesn't matter what your narrative says, doesn't matter anything else. So you guys, most of the time, know before you even submit a claim if it's going to be covered or not. So if a patient says to me they want to get a pre-authorization, you know what I do? I actually have in my desk a binder of EOBs for their employer. Like if you've got the local school district, I'll pull out an EOB that I've redacted the name and everything, and I will show them this is what Delta Dental of Pennsylvania pays for school teachers for a crown. What else do you need to know? Now, I'm a little ballsy about that, but that's the way I do it. And I've yet to have an issue where the claim isn't paid. And if it doesn't get paid, again, just like I would if I were running a Ritz-Carlton or Disney, if it's my fault, I eat the cost. And I've yet to have to do that. I'm cheap. If you guys don't know this yet, I'm a cheap person and I'm not eating cost. So if a pre-auth doesn't go through, I would have eaten the cost of it. And I've never in 30 years in dentistry had to do it. So I don't send pre-auths. It's just not something I'm going to do. Now, if it's something like a sinus lift and some weird other thing going on, yeah, maybe I'll send a pre-authorization because I don't have a track record for doing it. But 99% of the time, especially if it's a crown, absolutely not doing it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, yes.
Cool. And if you want to know how to do it, I can show you how to do it, how to send a pre-authorization. But if you're asking if I do it, that's a different question. So, and Catherine, you wrote the question, so I don't know if your question was how do you do it or if you do it.
No, thanks.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yep. And I did a webinar with an office this morning. I have an office that once a month we do a virtual skill development session for an hour. And one thing that I showed them is, doing pre-Ds, or let's just call it treatment plans. So to do treatment plans, and I'll show you guys in a couple minutes, I can do a treatment plan for a patient in less than a minute. I just posted a video on YouTube a couple days ago called "The Treatment Plan in 60 Seconds." I'll show you guys how we do that today. Yes. Next question was tips for Medicaid insurance. I think that's what that says. So I will tell you, I don't have a lot of offices that I work with who take Medicaid, except for in the state of Delaware. I have lots of offices that take Medicaid, and I have one huge for-practice group that they actually have their own department that does Medicaid. So I don't have much input for that, but there is a unit in the Facebook group that is all about processing Medicaid. I can't give you a lot of information on that because I don't personally have a lot of information. And anything I give you would probably just be repeating what I saw in the group. But the setups that I do for Medicaid are set up just like they're a fee schedule, and they write off. The only thing that I do differently with the setup is a lot of the Medicaid plans, especially the ones in my area, Pennsylvania and Delaware, there are visit copays. So the patient pays a $5 copayment no matter what. So I actually have an admin code. I think you guys see me talking about admin codes all the time. I have admin codes set up so that they will, so I just post a line item that's a $5 line item that the patient has to pay out of pocket. All right. It's the same as what a lot of offices are doing with the PPE fee, which don't get me going down that road. I think that's a nightmare too. So what is your opinion on coverage books? Sometimes our fees won't with coverage books, won't work with coverage books, I'm going to assume. Okay, so here's the thing. Coverage books are touchy because when I create a coverage book, that coverage book is specific to that employer and that insurance company. So to give you an example, Philadelphia school teachers, there's a billion of those, okay? They have Blue Shield of Pennsylvania. Blue Shield of Pennsylvania, I set up a coverage book called Blue Shield, and this is terrible. I don't know my kids' birthdays, but I know this group number, 0425, which is the group number for the Philadelphia school teachers. So Blue Shield 0425 dash coverage book. All right. And it has 4 codes in it. 1 surface, 2 surface, 3 surface, 4 surface composites, posterior composites, and that's it. And those coverage books are set up to show exactly what the insurance is going to pay and exactly how the patient's copayment is going to look. And I'm going to open up I'm going to share my screen over here to Eaglesoft again so you guys can see it. So let me go to, actually I could do it under AARP. It's the same idea. So under coverage books, here's my resin downgrade. And you can see how I typically set them up. It says Blue Cross Blue Shield and then the employer name and then the group number. All right. I can open this one up. So it's very specific because if the US government ever leaves Blue Cross Blue Shield and goes to Guardian, I just delete this coverage book because it has absolutely no bearing. It can't work going forward. So I just delete it and start a new one. You know, Guardian, US government, group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I just delete it. And you can see here, I have a very specific allowable fee, what the insurance will cover, and how much it is, how much the write-off is going to be, and does the deductible apply. So it's very, very specific, just a few codes, but that's it. And this is not a real good example because I always set them up as percentages. I never really set them up as dollar amounts if I can help it. FYI, if you set a coverage book up by dollar amount, it will automatically ignore the deductible. So be very careful. If you have coverage books set up through dollar amount, it will never take into consideration the deductible. Even if you put over there that the deductible applies. So just so you know. So that is a simple, and this is what a typical coverage book looks like in my offices. So I put in the allowable amount, the percentage they pay, because this is what the amalgam allowance would be, and then how much they're going to pay of the amalgam allowance, and then the patient pays the difference. And you can see I actually have codes. I've specifically made up codes for my cuspids. So I have anterior composites, posterior composites, and I have cuspids. So they bill out as posterior, but I can split out because sometimes we call the insurance company and they'll say, we cover this for posterior, we cover this for anterior, and we cover this for cuspids. So I actually can split it out so that I can post them differently. So let me stop this share, go back to here so I can see you guys. So, so that is, again, coverage books. That's why sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, because sometimes offices will share coverage books amongst employers, and that doesn't always work. So just so you know, is it possible to give an estimate to patients with dual insurance? Okay, so dual insurance is a nightmare because coordination of benefits is different across all insurances. Some will ignore the primary insurances. Some will say, you know, you got $25, so we're going to take $25 off of the payment, and then we're going to start to calculate it. Some of them say, we don't care that the primary sent you $25. We're just going to tell you what we pay based on your estimation. So there's like 5 different coordination of benefit rules. So it's almost impossible to set up coordination of benefits to work properly. All right. That being said, when I do dual insurances in Eaglesoft, I set it so that 100% is covered, like 50% from one, 50% from the other. And I don't use fee schedules when I have a dual coverage setup. And that's kind of crazy, but if you look in the field guide, there's a whole post on how I do dual PPO coordination of benefits. So basically what I do is I set it up so that it goes to the primary insurance, I get paid. It goes to the secondary insurance, I get paid, and then I send a statement to my patients. So I don't set it up so that it estimates insurance necessarily for dual coverage where there's a PPO involved, either primary or secondary, because it's almost impossible to get that number. And we know that patients who have dual coverage are typically the ones who are going to fuss at you because you're charging them. Because they always say, I have dual insurance, why are you charging me? So I wait until everything has been settled, and then I'll send a statement to the patient. But 90% of the time, for most services, there's no co-payment. Again, in my years of doing this, I haven't really run into anything. So there will be some situations where somebody has an FEP 104 program and the other one has another program. Yeah, there's going to be some co-payments there. But for the most part, very little co-payments on those things. So just so you know. Let's see. What percentage to use? Okay, yeah. So I get on the coverage books. Yeah, the percentage is going to be the percentage of when it's posterior resin. It's going to be the percentage they pay on amalgams, because they always, when it's a downgrade, they downgrade the amalgam. So it's always 80% of the amalgam fee. You know, that's kind of the rule. When I don't have a coverage book in, my default estimated percentage for posterior resins is 35 or 33 or 35%, depending on where your fees are. So if I don't have a coverage book in, it estimates at 33 or 35%. I hope you guys understand that. So if I don't have a coverage book in my posterior resins, it estimates at 35%. So, and you guys can do the math. Again, grab an EOB and look at what they paid for a posterior resin out of your total fee. So if your total fee is $100 and they paid $33, then it's 33%. So that's, I set that as my default estimated. And then when I add my coverage book, it will clear that up. All right. Do you have a video on creating coverage books? Oh, good question. I don't know. So let's look. I'm going to open up my YouTube channel here, and we're going to look together because I don't know. And I'm going to show you guys how to find out. So share screen. Let's go over here to this. Okay. So here is YouTube. And there's my son's YouTube channel if you guys want to subscribe to his channel. Just kidding. And here is my YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/Andre Shirdan, you got to write my full name. Or if you just do a search for Andre and Eaglesoft, you'll find it. Here's all the videos. If you go to playlist, there are playlists for how-tos. There's playlists for practice management videos. There's field guide videos, and there's interviews with industry experts. But if you go to videos themselves, you can see in the red what they're called. And I don't remember if I did one on coverage. I did do one on coverage books, and I did it with one of the Patterson trainers, but it's in here somewhere, but I just don't know where it is. But if, oh, there it is. Let's talk coverage books. There it is.
Yeah.
All right. And I did this.
Every time I look at my list, I can tell.
Katie works at an office here in Pennsylvania. So I did coverage books, and there it is there. So I see, I don't know half the ones I do. So I'll stop that share, come back over here. All right. So yep, coverage books. There is a video for coverage books if you need. Which way you prefer to check insurance benefits? Call, website, third party. Okay. So I kind of triage this. So my first line of defense is the real-time eligibility. I love real-time eligibility. Even if you don't use Patterson to process your claims, you can still get real-time eligibility. It's $30 a month. It's the best $30 a month that you can spend. That's right. All right. I love it. What I do with it is every patient, every visit, I click that button because for one, I can see remaining benefits. For two, I get a quick snapshot of their benefits. For three, if I click it and it says no benefits found, guess what? The claim you send in is not going to go through. So I always click that, and I have right on my schedule. I've got the OK symbol is on the top of my schedule. So every patient, I click that. I click the patient, and I click my OK symbol, which is the real-time eligibility. So I go through my entire day, just click, 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 just to see if they're covered, just to see remaining benefits. And again, I update my remaining benefits. So real-time eligibility is where I go first. Then the second layer of that would be if my doctor says, hey, Andre, do they have coverage for night guards? Well, that's not going to show up on real-time eligibility. So then I pick up the phone or website, whichever one, depends. Sometimes websites are available and they have the information. Sometimes you have to pick up the phone and call. But the key to that is if you put the information in, so give an example, and I'll ask this of you guys. If you get information that a plan pays for night guards, all right, and you put that information in the employer information, all right, how easy is it for you to retrieve that information? If it's hard for you to retrieve that information, you're going to have to call every time somebody from that employer comes in. So I'm going to share my screen again to you guys so you can see. I try to make that less of an issue. So in my employer, and I'm just going to take since we're on AARP, I'm going to click on my employer. And over here in my notes, I would have a note if my night guards are covered. So I would automatically have a note over here. See, it says NG up there for night guards. So night guards are covered, and I would have over here 50%. All right, so I automatically see night guard NG at 50%. All right, and then down here, I actually have, all right, in my service types, I have occlusal guards and I have sleep guards. So I can say night guards are covered at 50% and the deductible applies. So I know. So it's in there, it's done. And there's absolutely no reason for anybody to have to go back in because up here in AARP, I just found out the information about this plan. So I'm going to put 7 of 20 here. So everybody knows that this was just updated by me and now it's good. So if I'm working on a patient and they have that plan, I'm going to, and this guy probably doesn't have it. All right. So right from my clinical screen, if my doctor is wondering if night guards are covered, all they have to do is hit the insurance button right here. They can scroll down here through the percentages and see my guards, wherever they are.
Alphabetical order now.
Yep. There's my guards are where they're covered. All right, so guards coverage. All right, and then up there in my box right there would have been the percent, notes about it. Maybe it said they cover it, but they need a report or whatever. Any notes that I had on my employer would show up right there. So if you write the notes in the employer screen, those notes are always going to be available to the clinical folks over here. And what I find is that offices, I go in thousands and thousands and thousands of dental practices. And what I find is that people will put the notes in the patient notes, or they write them, in the memo field, or they write them up here in recall notes or whatever. And the problem with that is I've got thousands of school teachers who've come to my practice. And what do? Write that 1,000 times? Or do I put it in the employer screen where all I have to do is go to the employer and now I can find out if they cover night guards or not? So you remember, if it has to do with the employer, it should be in the employer screen. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys.
Oh, that's great.
All right. So again, how I check benefits, it's real-time eligibility, it's phone call or website. And then I do use the last part of that is third party. So I use companies like Practice Mechanic, Rick Garofalo, who's in the Facebook group. I love using them to do a lot of that stuff. But they're my backup. I use those guys when I need a backup. I ran a practice where I was the only person at the front desk. I have a 26 operatory practice where there's not only 6 people at the front desk, including all business aspects, and they do everything. To me, this is a one-person job, but it means that you've got to do it right the first time. Otherwise, you're going back and redoing it every single time. All right. So I do use a lot of third-party services to do stuff like that, especially as we've gone through this COVID nightmare. A lot of people have been out. So the third parties were a great resource. Next question was, are you attaching a primary EOB to the secondary claim? Okay, so I'm going to answer that question first because of coordination benefits. So here's something that I hope everybody knows this. All right, I'm in Pennsylvania. I work with a Pennsylvania insurance company. I'm not going to give you the name of it, but most of you guys, if you send claims to Pennsylvania, you'll know what it is. Okay. All you need to do is in the comment box on the claim form, write that the primary insurance paid $872. There's no reason to submit the EOB. Just so you know.
Where?
All right, in the comment box at the bottom of your insurance form. So, and I'll show you where it goes. But on the comment box on the insurance form, if you write in that primary insurance paid $1.27, that's all they need to coordinate benefits. They don't want your paper. If you send them paper, it's a nightmare. They don't want your paper. So just so you know, and I'm going to switch over to my other screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But they don't want your paper, and it's a pain. So let me see if I can find this. Oh, I'm going to share this out to you guys so you can see this. Right. Do you guys see this? This is the loading dock of the insurance company I was talking about. That's how many paper claims they get on a daily basis. Every day, they get that many paper claims. So believe me, they don't want your paper claims. All right. So on the bottom of the insurance form, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. And let's share this screen back out to you. So I'm just going to go to my open claims here and view a claim. So when you get to this screen, which is the last screen you get to print now, print later, submit electronically, there are your remarks for unusual services. That's your comment box. If you write in there what the primary insurance paid, now this is only for a couple of insurance companies, all right? But if you put it in there, there's no reason to attach an EOB. Now, the 99% of the other insurance companies, you will have to attach an EOB, but you can do that electronically. So the same way you can attach a X-ray, you can attach an EOB. All right. Now, while I'm here, let me tell you this. Do you guys know you don't need to mail in or send in a pre-authorization? So if you get a pre-authorization and you are done with that work, don't mail that pre-authorization form. All you do is type in the pre-authorization number right there when you submit the claim for those services. All right. So I've pre-authorized a crown. That was the question earlier. I pre-authorized a crown. Now I'm doing the crown. Don't mail that paper in. All you do is put the pre-authorization number in right there and then hit OK. And now that pre-authorization money will be released to you. And they don't have to look up anything, don't have to look at any x-rays. They already authorized it, they already approved it. All you have to do is put the pre-authorization number in that field and process your claim. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Does the $30 a month give you info for all carriers? So I'll take that question. Info on all carriers, and all carriers are going to be in quotes, because if you're out of network, some of the real-time eligibility will not be there for you. It's just, you're not in the club, they're not going to share information with you. So it is for a lot of them, but not all of them. So I can't say all carriers, but if you're in network, then yeah, they're going to share information with you. If you're out of network, it's, you know, it's a club. So they're only going to share with the club members. All right. And here's the thing. The next thing was I use eligibility, but not all carriers show. One thing I will tell you is, and let me share my screen again. Eaglesoft again. All right. What I find in a lot of offices is under the list of insurance companies. All right. If you don't have the claim payer ID set properly, so if you look at my list, you see all the blanks? Well, I'm not going to get eligibility back because there's no e-claims eligibility number here. All right. Or if I have 06126 in here, that's like putting 9999999 in for somebody's social. That's not their claim payer ID. So if I chose that Aetna and I tried to get real-time eligibility, it's going to say error, can't figure out who that insurance company is because it doesn't have the correct payer ID in there. So a lot of times when I hear it's, you know, real-time eligibility is not working, it's because of that. It's either a blank line or 06126 has been put in there. So you have to make sure that the proper claim payer ID is in for the eligibility to go through. All right. Our biggest employer's insurance is not on the eligibility service. Okay. Is there a way to have them added to that company? Kara, I don't know. And it could be that your biggest employer is an out-of-network provider for you. Like if you don't take United Concordia and they're United Concordia provider, then you're not going to get benefit information. That's one where you're going to have to go to their website to get the information. I have found that most of the time the information's there, but it may be, and again, you might look on there and you might find out that you have 06126 in for the claim payer ID, and that's why you're not getting the information back. So it could be a couple different things. Do I have a list of third-party resources that I use? Courtney, I'm going to assume you're talking about like Practice Mechanic, eAssist, the companies like that. Is that what it is? Maybe so. So third-party people that I use, well, remember I'm in thousands of practices, so there are lots of people who use lots of different things. People I recommend for third parties like this, eAssist, Practice Mechanic, if that's what you're talking about, like virtual assistants, those kind of folks. Yeah, so Practice Mechanic, eAssist, almost all of the ones that are out there that you've heard about, you know, I always hear good things about those things. What I tell people is they're great groups on Facebook, and if you ask the question, they're going to tell you. I try not to get into that in the Eaglesoft group, but if you go into any of the office managers groups, they're going to tell you if somebody sucks. So, but I will, you know, Practice Mechanic, they're in Pennsylvania. They're 45 minutes from me. I go to the Practice Mechanics headquarters every year to train them on my form of customer service training. So, and I've taught them how to use Eaglesoft. So I know that they're good because I train them. That's going to sound crazy, but I know that they're good because they're in the Facebook group and everything else. eAssist, there are a bunch of people from eAssist who are in our Facebook group. And believe me, they call me, literally, they call me when they run into Eaglesoft issues. So I know that they're on top of their stuff. So Practice Mechanic and eAssist, you know, I back them, I endorse them, but with each, you know, sometimes it's the employee. We all know that about based on the employees in our own office. So, yep. Which payer ID is the generic? Yeah, 06126 is the generic. That is the equivalent of 99999. And just so you know, and this only applies for if you're processing claims through Patterson. If you process your claims through Renaissance, whatever they're calling themselves now, Remote Light, whatever it is, the 06126 does not apply to that. But if you process claims through Patterson and you're submitting the claim with the 06126, what's happening is your claim goes to the clearinghouse. It is printed, put in an envelope, and mailed to the insurance company. So you definitely don't want to do that. So, good. And let's see. Do you have any training schedules for users in Virginia anytime this year or next year given COVID? So no. So right now, every training that I've had has been canceled. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I'm actually on my way to Montana next week to work with an office.
Really?
So that's, I'll be in Billings, Montana next week, training an office. And that is the only training that I have scheduled in 2020. Everything has been going through virtual meetings like this. I'm setting up virtual, well, I call them virtual skill development, because I don't do training. And that's, I wanted to address that. I don't do training. What I can do is I can help you get more out of the software. Training I leave for the experts who are the Patterson certified trainers. Those are the only folks I will endorse for doing training. There are a lot of people out there who will say that they're trainers, but I'll tell you right here on this phone call that most of the people who call themselves Eaglesoft trainers who are not Patterson trainers are calling me from your office, asking me how to do what they're charging you to do. So I will only endorse Patterson as trainers inside the office. What I do as a teacher is I will be happy to do a phone call with you where I will help you with getting more out of Eaglesoft, but I can't train you. I call it the difference between, driving school and racing school. If you want to go to driving school, hire Patterson, they will teach you how to drive. If you want to learn how to race, I'm your guy, and I will show you how to go really, really, really fast. All right, so that's the difference. And I see from some of the names on the group, a couple people who are in the group right now are people I've been in their offices, pre-COVID, and people who I've had virtual skill trainings, skill development sessions with too. So, but no, I mean, I wish, and Virginia's only a couple hours from me, so I miss going. But no, I'm not scheduling anything anytime soon, but happy to do it through Zoom. Can you give info on your virtual monthly trainings that you mentioned? Oh, okay. So that's what we're just talking about. So virtual skill development, all we do is we find a day and time that works for you. We schedule a time and we set up a Zoom call like this. And we do an hour on a topic. And we, work with, go from using my screen to your screen. We go back and forth between the two to see which one works best for you guys. And that's how we do virtual skill development.
Okay, just knock on the door when
and
you
let's
get
see.
here. She'll be out in a moment.
Are you aware that you're yeah. Cool. So any other questions you guys have? And again, like I said, you guys can unmute your mics if you have a question you want to ask, or if you want to type it in there. I'm a terrible typist. I've got dyslexia, so typing for me is a challenge. But if you guys have questions, type them in. And I will see. And it's crazy because as we do this, people are always sending me text messages and questions as we go. I probably get about 150 to 200 questions a day through every single social media format. So I'm going to check questions that came in through other things. Cool. What else can you guys think of? Oh, here. For a small office, 12 patients a day, how long should one person take to file, verify, et cetera, insurance? Good question. Okay, so loaded question. How long should it take? Seconds, all right? So if I have a new patient who comes in, for one, most patients who come into the practice have an insurance that is probably already on file. If the office has been open for more than a year, more than likely you already have their benefit information. All right, they're a school teacher. You already have 1 million people from the school district. If they're, they work for the city, they already got that information in there. So there's no reason why you wouldn't have that information in there. I would click my real-time eligibility. I'd see if they're really covered under that plan. I have the benefit breakdown. I put them in that plan. Took 2 seconds. All right. I don't need to recreate the wheel. I just have to connect them to that plan. All right. Now, at the end of the visit with them, for me to process the claim and file that claim takes seconds. All right. And then twice a day, and this is me, twice a day, I submit my claims. So at lunchtime, I process all my electronic claims. All right. At the end of the day, I process all my electronic claims. I do that because I don't want to be that guy at 5 o'clock trying to process claims and they're not going through and I want to go home. So I do it twice a day. so that I get my report back so that I can move forward with my patients. So I think, and again, I'm Mr. Automation. So I think any person in the office should be able to automate that process, meaning I do it once and then I just duplicate the process. It's like a calculator. You don't, most of us don't break out a pencil and paper every time we do a calculation. We break out a calculator. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to push the buttons and we get the answer out. So it should be seconds to verify, to input the patient's information. It really should be that quick. And if you watch any of the videos that I've done about how to set up patients, it should be that easy. What I find is that people put bad information in, so they get bad information out. All right. If you're in Michigan and you put in retiree as the name of the employer instead of GM retiree, you're going to have a hard time finding that. All right. I cleaned up an office a few weeks ago that had GM, Chrysler, Ford, all in their system a million times, but they were all UAW retirees. So instead of putting UAW retirees into the system and having one, they had 30 different employers, which means 30 different benefit breakdown, 30 different fee schedules, not fee schedules, coverage books, et cetera, et cetera. So it was just a matter of they set it up properly. It was easier. So in that office now, new patient comes in, you go, who do you get your insurance through? I get it through UAW. Great, click, done. And you're done. All right. Before they had to go searching for it. So it should be seconds. Just started working in an office. They have many employers listed in coverage books. Is there a report to run to see which ones are no longer active to delete them? No, there isn't, Kara. So the problem with it is, and again, in my office, I can tell if a coverage book is inactive because it would have a 2018 date or a 2019 date. So when I create a coverage book, it has a date on it that shows me when it was last updated. So if I looked at an employer, imagine somebody who came in and in their system, in our system, it said Radio Shack. Well, or, Radio Shack's gone out of business. So I would know that that's an old plan, and maybe even, the coverage book is old, and the employer, it might even say Metropolitan Life in there instead of MetLife. So I knew all of that was old.
Listening.
Yep. So you've got to go through the process of cleaning it up, but there is no report to run because there isn't anything that would say if it's an active or inactive coverage book. You really just have to clean it up as you go. So, and Lester, yep, we'll do a virtual meeting. That's fine. And let's see, how do you edit pop-up alerts? Okay, so the pop-up alerts, so I assume, all right, and you're not supposed to assume, but right. So I assume you're talking about the patient pop-up alerts. So let's go back to my screen over here. So those pop-up alerts are listed under List, General Setup, and Patient Alerts. Now, I'm going to be really clear about this. There are only there's three kinds of alerts in Eaglesoft. There are patient alerts that give you pop-ups. There are medical history alerts that give you pop-ups. And then there's Intellicare, all right, which typically don't give you pop-ups. So under patient alerts, they should only be personal alerts. And I wish it didn't say patient alerts. So it should be a personal alert. And that personal alert should be something like, don't give them evening appointments, likes to have a pillow, make sure you call paratransit to pick them up, credit card on file. All right, those are personal alerts. All right, I don't use account alerts, period. Don't use account alerts at all in my offices at all. All right, so patient alerts, I'm going to open that up. And you can see my patient alerts. I have a really short list. The ones that are in red pop up. The ones that are in black don't pop up. All right. So here's my favorite one, slut/loser. All right. So if I edit that patient alert, I've got an icon for it. So if this patient is a slut or a loser, all right, I get that icon. It shows on my schedule. It says indicator on appointment. And it shows in my clinical operatory. All right. And it warns me when I open that patient up. All right. Don't ever do this, guys. Don't ever put this in your system. All right. But I have this set up. So just to share as an example, do I not want this to pop up? I can uncheck that. Do I not want it on my schedule? I can uncheck that. Do I not want it in my operatory? I can uncheck that. So Down here, I have my VIPAs. Those are patients who break appointments. They are very important that I'm aware of that. I have my VIPFs. They're very important for financial reasons. And I have my VIPs, who are my doctors, friends, and family. So I have all three of those. I have uses a wheelchair, because if there's a certain opportunity that I want to make sure that patient's in, I want to make sure that that icon shows up on my schedule. So these are personal alerts and have nothing to do, well, I shouldn't say nothing to do, but they're not necessarily medical alert. All right. So vision impaired, hearing impaired. So if I have a patient who is hard of hearing, I want that on my schedule because I'm calling them. I want that in my clinical opportunity because as the patient's sitting down and I'm doing a treatment plan, I want to make sure that I'm face-to-face with them and don't have my back to them. So you can set these up and you can tie those patient alerts that you already have in your system to alerts. All right. And you can, uncheck warn if you don't want them to pop up. So those are your patient alerts. And then the medical alerts, all right, medical alerts that come from the medical history form, those can also, let's grab a good one, artificial joint. Those can also have an icon that you see, but I don't need that on my schedule. Somebody has an artificial joint. I don't need that on my schedule, but I definitely want that in my clinical screen so that I can see that person has an artificial hip. So that's that. Hopefully that makes sense. I lost my place. Let's see. Pop-up, yeah. So hopefully that makes sense with the pop-up alerts. So you can pick and choose how those pop-up alerts work. All right. What if the same insurance has different different distinctions for different family members? Okay. So, and we're seeing more and more of these things where dad, especially the military. So dad has a primary plan and that covers dad, but dad has a secondary plan that covers kids, and that might have different benefits. So it's a little weird how you set that up, but really what I do is I set the patient up. So dad, I'm just going to use that as an example. Dad has two plans, a primary plan and a secondary plan. So under dad, the primary plan has benefits for dad. The secondary plan has 0 remaining benefits for dad. Then when I set up the kids' primary plan is dad's secondary plan. I know it sounds really weird to say it that way, but when you set it up and you choose the plan for the kid, choose the secondary plan for the dad, that becomes their primary plan, and that is the plan for them. And there's a whole write-up on how to do that in the field guide. It's hard to do, but once you get it started, it's easy. You just have to be careful because in Eaglesoft, when you hit the OK button, it tries to revert back to the primary plan. So you have to just be aware. You have to kind of watch it to make sure it's choosing the secondary plan. All right. What's your opinion on Intellicare? Intellicare is the best thing in the whole frickin' world. All right. I think I was the only person, no, maybe 1 or 2 people ever at Eaglesoft who promoted it. When I came to Eaglesoft almost 15 years ago, I was telling people about Intellicares and nobody had ever done it before. I think Intellicares are one of the best things in the whole world. For me, it dictates so much. So I'll open up my schedule and open up an opportunity for you guys to see, but I utilize it for everything. I utilize Intellicares for all of the things that we used to back in the Stone Age buy stickers for. So the medical alerts that we used to put stickers on the front of the charts. Are they on a 3-month recall, 4-month recall, those kind of things. Do they have Blue Shield as opposed to MetLife? I use my Intellicare for all those things. And do we take x-rays or not during a visit? So I'm going to open up my chart and share this out for you guys so you guys can see. So if you look at my schedule and you look down the left column of my schedule, this lets me know everything I need to know about a patient without ever having to read any notes about the patient. So if you look at Bill Gates coming into my office, I know that he only wants to see Dr. Gray. So that's the icon. I know he hasn't filled out his COVID-19 forms yet. I know he is due for bite wings. I know he has a treatment plan that's over $1,000 that's uncompleted. He's a new patient in my practice, which doesn't make sense. He has no insurance on file, and he hasn't filled out his HIPAA notifications, which that's not typically on my system. All right. So I can tell everything I need to know about the patient just by looking at my schedule. And this is the way we have huddles in our office. We stand around a big 70-inch monitor and we look at the schedule. And there's no reason for us to print route sheets. There's no reason for us to do anything like reading through anything, because right here, this VIP in red, I know this guy owes me money. There's no reason for me to do anything else. He has a balance over X dollars and it's been X number of days since he's made a payment. I don't need to do anything else. All right. I know this patient over here has got Delta Dental. All right. I know this person's on a 3-month recall. That person has a problem with keeping their appointment. It's a VIP in yellow. So let's call him again and confirm his appointment. All right. So, you know, I use those Intellicares for lots and lots and lots and lots of things. All right. Because it's important. All right. So, to me, Intellicares it takes your level of information up to a different level. And I'll show you in the operatory how I use those here, if this will ever switch over. My system's run a little slow, but hopefully it'll pop up if it doesn't crash. There it goes. So right there. So green tooth lets me know the bite wings are due. Red tooth lets me know the FMX is due. This is a patient who has MetLife. They're overdue for their prophy. There's a medical history that's outstanding, needs to be updated. There's a treatment plan over $1,000 and their COVID-19 form has not been updated. So I don't need to do a whole lot of digging to know exactly what's going on with my patients. I immediately see that as soon as I look in this screen. All right. So Intellicare's best thing in the whole world. Where can you find the field guide? Okay. So let's open that up, and it is, hopefully if you're on Facebook, I'm going to go over here and share my screen out here again. So if you're on Facebook, type in Eaglesoft Field Guide up here on the search bar, and you will find the field guide here. And just so you guys know, there are a couple great things that you can do in the field guide. All right. A couple things here. There is a file section here, and these are all like handouts and great pieces of information that everybody has been able to upload to the group. So lots of good handouts and things over here. There's some insurance verification form. There's my financial arrangement treatment plan form. So great stuff here. Even some of the icons. There's that COVID-19 icon that you just saw me using. So lots of good stuff over there. All right, so that's in the file section. And then under units, if you've ever done any online learning, the way that the unit section is set up is each topic is set up with its own unit. And then within each unit are different topics. And you can actually use it just like online learning. You can actually, once you read through the topic, you can hit this button right here that says done, and it would be green normally. You can hit done, and it'll keep track of, with those green check boxes, which ones you've completed or not. So it's almost like online learning where you can, it's almost like getting a star for reading a chapter. Yep. So you can go to the unit section, pick the topic you want, and then go through it. And you can see right here that it says I've completed all 24 of the 24 units. All right, because I have nothing else to do with my life. All right. And if you ever have a question, there's a search bar there. And if you just type in Intellicare or whatever your topic is, and it'll find all of the posts about Intellicare. And that's why you guys see me all the time moving questions into a thread so that it's easier to find, because, you know, like sometimes you'll Google something and you'll have so many thousands of responses. I really want everything to be so simple that all you have to do is go in here, and there's 216 comments in this Intellicare thing, but it's so much easier to take one topic, and here's a video, and then all the other posts about Intellicares. So it makes it easier to be able to go through this. All right. And you can see I've already gotten seven posts there. People are asking about this thing. So that was how to find the field guide. We use account alerts for the frequency limits for quick way for our to see benefits. Okay, that's fine. My problem is account alerts are specific to the account, And the problem is if the patient leaves that insurance company, or if the insurance company has a different, if the patient's group information changes, you've got to change every single account alert. Because again, the frequencies are going to be different if they've changed insurances, which means you have to go back through thousands and thousands and thousands of patients where my frequency limits and that information is in the notes of the insurance company, of the employer and that particular group. So I can change hundreds of employers and you're changing thousands of patients. So for me, it's always the path of least resistance. So frequencies, I have different places. I'll even do, I do patient alerts before I would do account alerts. That's just me. So it's easier for me to do it. And as far as age limits are concerned, again, I can see that in my, benefit breakdown. But let me show you guys something before we run out of time here. And we'll go until 2:30. So give it another 15 minutes. But I want you guys to see how I get around the whole fluoride age limit issue. So I'm going to switch it back over to Eaglesoft. And I want you guys to see, if I go to D1208, all right, I actually have, oh, it's not showing here. I actually have multiple codes for my fluoride. So I have a child and I have an adult fluoride code. So if I have a 14-year-old who comes in, and I know this isn't the right code, but I actually post this code for the 14-year-old and I post this one for the 15-year-old. So this one, it says over here, preventive non-covered. So this one will not estimate insurance and this one will. So I don't have to worry about age limitations 90% of the time when I'm walking out patients. Now, if they cover up to 18, it might be a difference, but I actually have in their breakdown, do they cover fluoride for adults, over 14 or not? So all I do is, in my walkout, and I'll show you what would happen. If I'm doing a walkout on a patient, and let's get rid of that. I do a D1206 and I do an A1206. All right, you see one of them estimates insurance and the other one doesn't. So if this is the 14-year-old, it's going to show coverage. And if that's a 15-year-old, there's no coverage. So that's how I get around frequencies, because even if you have that frequency alert, it's still not going to help you when it comes to, age limitations for fluoride. If you don't have something like this in your system, you're still going to post that fluoride. It's still going to say estimated insurance 100%. And mom's going to be upset because it says on your walkout that the patient's covered, but you're telling them they're not. But in mine, it's not going to say that. So really easy way around that. And let's see. Can we attach documents to employer groups? No. And I'm not sure what you mean by documents, but if you mean, you can attach a document to an insurance company, but you can't attach it to an employer. Insurance companies have smart docs. Employers do not have smart docs. So if that's the question you're asking, I'm not sure. So 10 more minutes, guys. Any other questions? Throw them out there. If you want to unmute your mic, you can. If you want to type them in the chat box, go for it. Cool. I answered your question. Great. Yep. Yeah. For the insurance companies, the binders that are on the wall, I will actually scan those. I have a big multi-page scanner. I will actually scan that entire binder and put it in the smart doc of the insurance company. So any fee schedules that you have for that insurance company, attach it to the smart doc of that insurance company. So when is the next one? I was actually thinking about the next, after insurance, the next one down was, I think, charting or something like that. So I think I'll try to do another of these meetings maybe in 2 weeks. Like I said, I'll be traveling next week. So maybe in 2 weeks, I'll do another one of these kind of like the same time, or maybe do a little later for the folks who are on the West Coast. But, I'll try to do these as often as possible. If you guys want me to do these things, all you got to do is ask. Happy to do them. With COVID coming down, I've been sitting at my desk a whole lot more. I know you can't see it, but let me see if I can turn my camera. But there's right there in my office is my inverter. I've got an inversion table because my back has been killing me because I've been sitting way more than I've ever done in my life. So happy to help whatever I can, guys.